Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world. Today, we're digging into Sarah Silverman's memoir, The Bedwetter. But we're not just looking at it as a story, we're breaking it down as a system. Think of this as a compressed structural companion to our deep dive.
So, just to be super clear about what we're doing here and what we're not, this isn't a book summary. It's definitely not life advice, and we're not here to comment on Silverman's personal journey. Nope. We're using her memoir as a really fascinating case study to understand the mechanics of a pretty powerful system.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to map out what we're calling the reputation marketplace of stand-up comedy. Then we'll get into the surprising currency that actually makes that market go round. After that, we'll see how a very specific kind of persona gets built, how conflict actually keeps the whole thing running, and finally, how it all plugs into the much, much bigger world of cultural identity. So let's start with the big one. What is the system at the heart of all this? Well, it's the incredibly competitive world of stand-up comedy. But you have to see it for what it is. It's really a marketplace for reputation. See, comedians aren't just selling jokes. They're building, managing, and trading on their public image. And you know, the crazy part is, the raw materials for this marketplace are hiding in plain sight. This is literally the table of contents from the book. Just look at what gets turned into content. Bedwetting, family fights, getting fired, even your very identity. These deeply personal, sometimes really painful experiences, they become the product that gets packaged and sold. So how does this marketplace actually work? Well, the rules are kind of simple when you boil it down. You've got all these performers competing for one thing: audience attention. So to get an edge, they often dive into taboo subjects and raw personal confessions. In this world, being vulnerable isn't a weakness, it's capital. And the clearest signal that you're winning, the ultimate reward? Laughter. Okay, so that leads us to a really crucial question. What does a system like this incentivize? I mean, if vulnerability is the thing that's valuable, then the system creates this powerful pull to take your private pain and your shame and turn them into public assets. And wow, this quote from the book just lays out the logic perfectly. Silverman calls her early trauma a gift. Why? Because it gave her the feeling of having nothing to lose, which she says is the ideal mindset for a comedian. You can literally see the system at work right here, rewarding the alchemy of turning a private burden into a professional superpower.
You know, let's actually put a name to this idea: performance capital. It's the value you get when personal experiences, especially the messy, the vulnerable, or the shameful ones, are converted into things like audience connection and professional status. It is the actual currency of this marketplace.
And this right here is the core idea. Stand-up comedy basically functions like an emotional refinery. It takes the raw material of private shame, and it processes it, polishes it, into public capital. This is the engine that drives the entire system we're talking about. So what's the logical result of a system like this? I mean, if you're being incentivized to turn your pain into capital, you're going to need a way to manage all of that. And the result is the creation of a very carefully constructed public persona. It's not just about being authentic on stage. It's about engineering a character that can effectively use that performance capital. And right here, Silverman just lays the strategy right out for us. She adopted a persona, her words, ignorant and arrogant, as a deliberate tool. This character gave her a way to talk about incredibly difficult subjects, like racism, from a kind of strategic distance. It's a really fascinating idea, right? A way to be sincere by saying things you don't actually mean. This slide shows that process perfectly. On one side, you see the raw output, a handwritten joke for a celebrity roast. And on the other, you see the explanation of the pretty complex strategy behind it. The ignorant persona delivers the harsh line, but the hope is that the audience sees the sincere, critical point underneath that offensive surface. But what happens when that complex strategy just fails? Well, the system creates conflict. And here's the twist. That very conflict often strengthens the system because it generates even more attention, which, remember, is the ultimate currency of this marketplace. The controversy with the media watchdog Gaia Oki is just a perfect case study. In this letter, Silverman explains her whole method, using an ignorant character to expose bigotry through irony. But the problem was, the audience didn't see the irony. They just heard a racial slur. This just shows the huge risk that's baked right into this persona-driven strategy. So this disconnect between what was intended and how it was received, that's not a bug in the system. It's a feature.
This is a fundamental crisis in perception. When that ironic layer just doesn't land, all that's left is the offensive surface. And of course, the controversy that follows just feeds more attention right back into the marketplace.
And finally, this performance capital and the persona that's built to wield it, they don't just stay inside the comedy world. They become these incredibly powerful assets that can be used in much, much larger arenas. Media, celebrity culture, and yeah, even politics. This satirical quote is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. The exact same ignorant and arrogant persona that she used for stand-up is now being deployed in the political sphere. The capital she earned in one marketplace is now being spent in another, shaping political conversations and solidifying her public identity.
So the entire pathway just comes right into focus. Step 1, you build performance capital inside the comedy system. Step 2, you construct a persona to manage it. Step 3, you leverage that persona in bigger markets. And step 4, you use that influence to actually shape the wider culture. And all of this really leaves us with a central, kind of nagging question. When our private lives are turned into public commodities and a persona is built to sell them, where exactly is the line between authentic expression and strategic performance? Crisis in Perception examines how systems shape belief and how better tools help us see clearly. This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon. For a longer audio-based analysis of this topic, see the deep dive linked in the description. If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.